Hi everyone, this is the AstroLab from Arturia, and it's just been released, so I'm happy to finally be able to talk about it. It's a 61 key performance orientated keyboard, packed full of presets with 35 synthesis engines and 10 synthesis types, using a mix of virtual analog and physical modeling technology. Anyone familiar with Arturia's Analog Lab will already have experienced the power of their instruments and presets. AstroLab comes with Analog Lab Pro and thousands of presets to get you started. I'll give you an overview of the keyboard and then we'll dive into some of the features in more detail. So as I said, it's a 61 key keyboard, semi-weighted. You've got your typical pitch bend wheel, you've got a modulation wheel with a nice handy light strip, you've got transpose buttons, and handy, using the shift function, I can actually transpose in semitones as well. Moving along to the central section, we've got some set of creative tools here. We've got an ARP, so if I turn that on. We've got chord and scale functionality, so I have that turned off. Play a single note, and when it's turned on, turn the ARP off. A single note performs a chord. Anyone who's familiar with Arturia's other keyboards will have come across this feature before. You've also got a scale feature, which quantizes any notes that are outside a particular scale into that scale. So it's on C major at the minute. You've got a MIDI looper, where you can record up to 32 bars of performance information. And that includes also any of the movements that you make with these knobs here. This color encoder wheel gives you access to all the features inside AstroLab. It gives you access to all the presets that are in AstroLab, various filtering options, and your settings. Moving along to your instrument section here, we've got preset types. So you've got piano, electric piano, organ, bass. There's 10 types here in total, but there's actually more instrument types available. AstroLab is two-part multi-timbral, so you can set the keyboard to play one or two presets, and you've got the option to split it, so you can split it any way you want, layer the two sounds on top of each other, or split them across the keyboard. And you can have different settings for each part in terms of the arpeggiator, the chords being used, how it's scaled, how pedals and controls react to those parts. Anyone familiar with Analog Lab will have come across this layout before, where you've got 8 knobs to control a particular preset. These are macro knobs, so it controls brightness, timbre, time and movement. But you've also got shift functionality, which is common across a lot of Arturia's keyboards, where you've got a secondary function, and you've also got a master EQ at the end of the whole signal chain, where you can adjust bass, mid and treble. Moving along to the effects section, you've got 2 insert effects with 12 effects to choose from, and you've got 2 send effects, delay and reverb, and you've got various different types of delay and reverb to choose from. And finally, you've got your main master volume. Moving around to the back of the keyboard, we've got an array of connections and ports. On your far right is the power button. Next to that is your power socket, and it has a handy nut feature that allows you to tighten it to avoid the socket being pulled out. Next, we've got a USB-C connection for connection with your computer, a tablet, or even your phone. Next to that, we've got a USB-A connection, which you can use to plug in, say, a USB key, or you can plug in an additional MIDI controller. And at the minute, I'm actually even plugging in a USB light to give some more illumination here. So it's a very handy feature. Next from that, you've got your headphone port. You've got stereo out. If you're only plugged into mono, the sound is summed. Moving along from there, you've actually got an audio input. So there's an audio interface built into the keyboard, and you've got gain control. So you can plug in mic level, line level, and instrument level for processing through the vocoder presets within the keyboard. Moving along, you've got 4 keyboard control ports. So you can use sustain pedal, expression pedal, and then you've got 2 auxiliary inputs for different types of pedals. And these ports not only control sustain and expression, but if you went into your settings, see what other options we have here. So we go to our pedals. So for, say, the auxiliary ones, we can choose next preset, previous song, next song, turn the arpeggiator on and off, hold on and off, looper record, looper play, tap tempo. And then you can get into changing things like, in the organs, you can change the Leslie speed. Yeah, and you can turn effects on and off, delay on and off, reverb on and off, and yeah, alter the preset selection. Communication with the computer is done through Analog Lab, where you can organize your presets, load presets, do playlists. There's lots of really cool filtering options to allow you to target the exact type of presets that you want to work with. And similar functionality is available on AstroLab itself. And you also have the plug-in within your DAW. Functions exactly the same. You can link both the standalone app or the plugin in your DAW to the keyboard so that any changes you make on one is reflected on the other. The cool thing about this is that when you're using it within a DAW, you can monitor the AstroLab directly and get zero latency. So it's regardless of whatever buffer size you have set up in your DAW, you'll always get zero latency when you're playing AstroLab. On top of that, there's AstroLab Connect, which is a companion app. This is essentially Analog Lab in an app. So it allows you to communicate with AstroLab, organize presets, create playlists, but you can do it on the go, whether you're in your rehearsal space, on the road, doing a gig. So let's look at some of these features in more detail. One of the main features of AstroLab is the ability to have thousands of presets available wherever you are, in the studio, on stage, in rehearsal. These are organized into types. So you can see you've got your preset type buttons along here. You'll also notice there when I play a particular sound, I can change to a different category. And as long as I have the key held down, it won't change to the new sound. It's only when I actually release the key and then play again that the new sound actually takes over. You've got various presets organized into keys, pads, strings, and these are using the augmented strings library from Arturia. But there would also be string patches from, if I was to hold this down here, we can see that there's other string types from, say, other synthesizers. More of an FM type, plucked string. And we've got a brass type. We've got sequenced patches. And you also have the ability to set up playlists. And within playlists, you organize what's called songs. So these can be, a new production you're going to work on, a playlist for a set that you're going to perform. We'll get into that in more detail later. Traditionally, when you have a lot of presets, it can be difficult to try and find the right preset that you're looking for when an idea or inspiration comes. Luckily, within AstroLab, there's numerous ways to allow you to filter your selection and get to the sound that you want fast. So go back to the color encoder. By pressing back, it takes you repeatedly through the main screens that you'll use to access and view your sounds. By pressing shift and back, it takes you to your home screen. Now, everything here is designed for filtering apart from your settings menu. If we scroll along here, you've got your types. If I go in here, you can got, similar to our preset types that we have access to the buttons here, but you've got things are filtered a bit differently, or you have extra options. You've got brass and wind here, and you've also got drums, vocal effects, vocoders and such, and you've also got sound effects. You can further filter these. A long press on your encoder here gives you access to other features within AstroLab, depending on what you're accessing. So in terms of our instrument types here, if I was to long press on bass, it will now split the categories further into subtypes. So if I was looking for a sub bass, I can go into this category, and now all the presets that it's showing me are all sub bass patches, so I could select one of them. And then either by using the collar on the color encoder or by using the next and previous, I can browse these presets, and then when I find one that I want, I can just load it. There is a feature that allows you to, as soon as you select a new preset, that I will automatically load it, but I prefer to browse first and then load the actual preset. So we'll go back to our home screen again. Other options here, we've got instruments. So these are all Arturia's instruments. I think it's up to 35 different instruments that you have to choose from. So you can browse, if you have a particular instrument in mind that you want to use, you could say go into your DX7. If I single press on this, it will give me all the different DX7 sounds to choose from. But the problem here is that the types are all mixed together. So if I was looking for a particular type of instrument, it might be difficult to find it. But what I can do is if I go back to DX7, I can hold down and now it will show me my type. So if I'm looking for a piano, I can go in here and I can select one of these, and now you can see it's highlighted piano here. So that This is actually a hybrid sound. So it's a 2-part sound. It's a piano and an actual DX7. Again, I can browse through the other sounds. These are all either hybrid sounds or sounds that use the actual DX7 as well. If I wanted to go back to the DX7 library, I just hit back. Now I'm in my types again, so I can look for, okay, I want to look for a DX7 bass. And here we go. Then I can select the first one and I'm in here. So we'll go back to our home screen again. Other options you have in here, you have curated playlists of presets, artist presets. So if you're a fan of a particular artist, such as say Aphex Twin, you can go in here and access sounds inspired by some of his music. So when I go into this category, you can see that certain lights have been highlighted on my preset types here. So there's no piano, electric piano or organ patches, and there's no string or brass. Only the instrument types that are available are highlighted. So I can select bass. You can see it's selected one of the basses here. Add a bit of reverb. Bit of delay. If I was to select any of the other types, it would just take me back to the main category for that type. But if I hold briefly on, say, lead, it takes me into the lead section of the curated Aphex Twin patches, or if I was to hold down sequences, it does the same. But if I wanted to jump back to, say, just all my pianos, a single press on the piano will take me back to there. You have option to like your presets, so that if you were working on a particular preset and you're like, oh yeah, I want to come back to that, a long press on the encoder allows you to like that particular preset. We also got other options. If you made some modification to the preset, you could save it. You can add it to a playlist. If you're browsing your presets and you come across a sound, okay, that's going to be good for that song that I'm working on, you can add it to that playlist. You can delete a preset. You've got various MIDI options. This is just a single part preset, but if I go in here, I can set the note range. I can set the input type to be from a particular MIDI channel. Output channels, I can transpose, and I can select whether pitch bend, modulation, afterswitch, sustain, or expression affect this part. This is not particularly relevant for this preset because it only contains one part. But when you're working with a multi-part where you've got two presets, it allows you to set up different settings for each part so that different controls, different inputs can affect each part differently. So I just go back there. And then you've got info, which is the name of the preset if you wanted to rename it, or if you've altered a preset so that it doesn't really relate to the type that it originally came from. Maybe you added a synth part to it. You can then send it to another type. So the whole thing about having so many presets to manage that it's important to keep the metadata in check. That's also where using Analog Lab Pro and the AstroLab Connect app come in handy.